you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thank you for hosting me. It's a wonderful honor to be here, and thank you to Pluralsight. What an amazing announcement about Pluralsight 1.
Thank you. Yeah, we're excited, man. Like, look, you know, I've been a big fan of the Hour of Code for a long time, and it wasn't that long ago that, I think it was like a year and a half ago, I somehow convinced the governor, Governor Herbert, to do the Hour of Code with us in the state capitol. We had in the Gold Room, a room there with a bunch of kids from the local schools sitting there with the governor, and the governor actually wrote some code. And I thought that was pretty cool. But I understand you got President Obama to do the Hour of Code. I guess that's a little better.
Slightly better.
Just a little. Like, tell me the story. Like, what was that like? Like, how did that happen? How did you create that?
Getting President Obama to do the Hour of Code took quite a while. I should say we're actually working, since that happened in 2014, so it was about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I've been working now 3 years on trying to get the Pope to do an Hour of Code, which is one level higher. So if anybody here knows somebody who knows the Pope, please get in touch with me. We might be getting closer, but
That's awesome.
We're trying to get the president to do the Hour of Code. What's interesting is we practically created the Hour of Code in order to get the presidents to do it, which is a kind of an unusual thing, because the Obama White House reached out to us saying, how can we get the president involved? And I said we should get the president to write some code himself to inspire students to show that anybody can do this and that even adults should start learning computer science. And they were like, well, why would the president be writing code? And we said, well, we can create a global movement for having everybody try just for 1 hour, and he could do it too. So literally, that's how the idea for the Hour of Code came about. And they're like, all right, we'll do it. And then that year is the year that the healthcare.gov site went down. And it was literally 1 month before the launch of the Hour of Code. And they're like, we're not quite as sure about the president learning to code this month. They didn't quite say why. So we did the first Hour of Code, and the president did a speech, which was fantastic and helped kick it off. So 1 year later, we're like, can we get the president to this time host an Hour of Code at the White House? And they were like, all right, we'll host an Hour of Code at the White House. So we actually sent an email to 200,000 teachers saying one lucky classroom is going to get picked for a super secret Hour of Code in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
We can't tell you what it is. And then the White House is like, we don't have the president confirmed yet. We're like, that's okay. The teachers will want him. I'm sure he'll do it now that the teachers are expecting it. And they're like, okay. So all these teachers got excited.
That's awesome.
2 weeks basically before, he still wasn't.
Wow.
He still wasn't confirmed. And then by complete chance, I got invited to a White House, like a celebration for people who had donated to his campaign, and I had donated to his campaign. And I was going there just as a donor, not as Codeorg. And I figured I'm just going to go to the White House in case the president is part of whatever I'm getting invited to. And it was like 500 people at this dinner, but there was a receiving line to take photos with the president. And I basically stood in the receiving line. I'm an Iranian immigrant, and as soon as I met the president, I didn't just shake his hand. I grabbed it like this. And I'm like, please don't let secret security kill me. Yeah, and I grabbed it and I didn't let go, and I basically told him I want him to do an Hour of Code to inspire kids, and he said, I'm going to do it. And so 2 weeks later, he did it.
Dude, that's incredible. That, it shows your commitment to the problem. I mean, that takes some courage to do that. And part of your strategy to me, as I've watched what you've done, which has just been so incredible to me, started with this video. That it was just like a viral video that all of a sudden I saw show up on Facebook or Twitter one day, and it had all these amazing people, people that other people look up to, in the tech industry, celebrities, athletes, and so President Obama is kind of like tell me more, did you strategically think about that in the beginning, or is it just, how did it all sort of come together?
Sure. First of all, none of these people has been easy to get. People assume oh, you should get Beyonce to do blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Every celebrity on earth I've asked them 5, 6, 7, 8 times.
Wow.
It's not easy, it takes persistence. But the reason we've done it is because education isn't just about learning, it's also about inspiration. And people need to be inspired to take the leap to learn something they've never learned, especially something they're intimidated about. Coding and computer science, if you're in tech, doesn't seem intimidating, but if you're not, it's like the most intimidating thing in the world. And we've tried to inspire people to show that 8-year-olds can start learning this. I started learning when I was 10, and nobody told me that it was this intimidating thing that's not meant for me.
Yeah.
And most young kids don't think that way, but their teachers are intimidated, adults are intimidated, and to break past that intimidation, we've used many different ways of inspiring people, whether inspiring them with celebrities or world leaders, or inspiring them with the stories of young kids who've done amazing things.
Well, what I'm hearing in that, though, is that it was very intentional.
Absolutely
Like you
intentional.
knew that if you could go out and get these people that everyone looked up to and across different demographics, different interests, that would make a difference here.
Absolutely.
And I want to double click on what you said about your story. Like, so you started when you were 10. I shared my story yesterday when I was about the same age, when my father brought home one of the first Apple II computers, and my beginning in that journey when we wrote our first lines of code together. Like, just give us a little bit about that. How did that happen for you?
Sure. My story is very linked to why I'm doing Code.org. My dad actually was one of the co-founders of the main technology university in Iran, and so I've literally had tech education in my blood. And I lived in Iran during the 1980s. This was basically during a war with Iraq, and our neighborhood literally was one of the bombing targets because we lived right near the main television station for the country. So I spent my childhood in a basement just hoping our home wouldn't get destroyed by a bomb, which was like the worst place to grow up. And then my dad one day brought home a Commodore 64, not an Apple II, but a good computer. And he basically said, this doesn't have any games, it doesn't have any apps, but if you and your brother learn how to code, you can make your own apps and games. And he basically taught us. And that basically got us started. By the time I came to this country as an immigrant, we didn't have any money, but I was so good at coding that when my friends were getting summer jobs as babysitters or as busboys or as gas station attendants, my brother and I were in 9th grade doing internships at tech companies. And I feel I'm living the American dream. And yet at the same time, it's now 30 years later, and schools in America aren't teaching the kids just the even basics of getting started on the path that I got. Meanwhile, the country I came from in Iran, every single high school teaches coding in high school. So the country I left now is giving that opportunity to every child. Our country, the majority of schools don't teach computer science, and I set out to solve that problem.
It's awesome. And eventually, in that path, you ended up at Google, one of the best tech success stories of all time, and had some great outcomes there. And then after that, you basically shifted all your focus to this. Like so when you think about like what you're doing here, another thing I hear you talk about a lot is diversity. I see it in the website, like I see it in the Code.org learning experience. Like you're very intentional about not only doing things that would be attractive to a young boy, but also a young girl. Like talk to me about that.
Well, the core reason we're doing what we're doing is diversity, and diversity of opportunity and equality of opportunity. We're not named after any one diverse group. We could be named after girls learning to code, or after African Americans learning to code, or after Latinas learning to code. The reality is in computer science, almost everybody is underrepresented other than upper middle class white men and Asian men. But basically girls, Latinas, Hispanics, and most especially people from underprivileged poor communities are underrepresented. And the way to grow diversity in the education pipeline is through the K through 12 education system. Every child in America goes to school, and school teaches biology, it teaches chemistry, it teaches to the kids who want it, it teaches calculus. The idea that school wouldn't teach even the basics of computer science in the 21st century seems broken to me, and that's what we're trying to fix.
Yeah, so you really committed your life to this, and how's it going? Like, talk to me about the progress you're making with the schools and the states, and what are you seeing?
It's going amazingly well. It's just so beyond my wildest expectations. As just one measure, 20% of all students in America have an account on Code.org. Most of them joined and were active just in the past school year. So we doubled just in the past school year. And these aren't just rich kids. They're 48% poor kids. They're 49% Black or Hispanic, and 47% girls. So it's almost perfect diversity.
That's amazing. So incredible.
1 out of 5 kids having an account in the system. In the 5th grade, it's almost 30 or 40% of all 5th graders are coding in the last 12 months on Code.org. So we have millions of 5th graders learning this field when our universities are teaching about 40, 50,000 students, in the senior year taking computer science.
Yeah.
So we're going to dramatically change the face of things. And it's not just that they're learning on Codeorg, the entire school system is making computer science part of the curriculum, and that's happened in 120 different cities, and we're working with multiple dozens of states to change the state curriculum
awesome.
to support this.
Yeah, it's incredible. So when you think about the hour of code, has that been an important catalytic element to like get the exposure
Absolutely.
to all these kids? Like, how did that idea come?
Well, the hour of code is really kind of a lead gen tool.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily describe it that way because it's a very inspirational lead gen tool. But it's basically to generate interest in the field. In 1 hour, you can't learn, how to become a coder or how to become a software engineer. You don't do an hour of math. You do, all year, all through school, you do math. 1 hour is enough to break the intimidation. The intimidation of, I'm a English teacher or biology teacher, I'm not going to be able to teach computer science to these 9-year-olds. They probably know it better than me, or maybe the kids in that school could learn this, but not the kids in our school.
Right.
Those types of intimidations are very real, and they're because these teachers and the adults themselves have no experience.
Yeah.
In 1 hour, that's enough to be like, oh, this is what it involves?
Yeah.
I could figure this out. Or, oh, the kids are having so much more fun than my other class. I should just do more of this.
So when is it happening again?
Well, the hour of code is continuously happening, first of all. The tutorials for the hour of code, the first time we did it, it was so popular. They're like, don't take these tutorials away.
Right.
Literally, during the time we've spoken, 100,000 people have started doing the hour of code,
Wow.
which is crazy,
That's
the
crazy.
pace at which it's happening. We're close to 1 million hour of code sessions a day. But the main campaign, the pinnacle of the campaign is December 4th, the second week of December, and that's the week of the birthdays of Grace Hopper and Ada Lovelace. Most people don't realize the first computer programmer was a woman,
Yeah.
and that this is a field that has been really practically invented by women in the early days. And that week is when this international campaign, countries all around the world are going to be celebrating it.
So if we have people here in the audience who have kids in schools who aren't having the hour of code, or don't have a computer science education program within their schools, what would you tell them? How can they get going?
Sure. Well, first of all, so many parents ask me some version of, do you know a summer camp I should send my kid to? And that basically is, what that question really is saying is, I don't think my school can teach this, so where could I take them instead of school? And the most important thing is we need to change our mindset that school can teach this. And it's not this sort of theory that school can teach this. We've now had thousands of high schools that have never taught computer science before, teaching AP college-level computer science. The teachers doing the teaching are English teachers or science teachers. The students score better on those exams, on the computer science exam, than on the English and science exam, taught by the same teacher. So our schools, public schools, private schools, charter schools can teach it. If you want your child to have the opportunity to learn computer science, get engaged in getting their school to teach it. And we have a website at code.org. If you go to code.org/help, or just click on the Help Us link, there's a whole series of ways you can help. The simplest things are to buy a hat, or you can buy the socks.
Nice.
That are pretty cool. And the hats and socks really are just to spread the word, but we have a letter you can send a principal, a petition you can sign, and then there's opportunities for volunteering yourself as a teacher in a classroom or to inspire kids. So if you go to code.org and click the Help Us button, there's a whole set of options, and we'd love your help. This has really been a movement powered by teachers and by technologists coming together and thinking that the education system needs to add a new subject in the 21st century. This is important for schools to teach. So it's really been because of you that we've been successful.
Do you find that the parents are the ones that can make the biggest difference in this?
I'd say the parents make the second biggest difference. The teachers are making the biggest difference.
Interesting.
Although you make a huge difference. I don't want to downplay that. But this is such...
Yeah.
The story of Code.org really is an inspirational story of the American teacher who's working in this system that is bureaucratic, doesn't change, and they themselves got into it out of a desire for service and now feel kind of beat down by all these rules and bureaucracy and more standardized tests and all these things. And then they're deciding, I don't care if the system isn't telling me to teach this, I'm going to teach this.
Yeah.
I compare our work to Airbnb. Airbnb gets people to turn their home into a hotel, and they don't build hotels, they don't hire hotel staff, they just leverage the people of the world to build hotels. we're leveraging the teachers of the world to teach computer science in their existing classroom, in their existing school. And we're literally larger than Airbnb. We have more teachers than Airbnb has hosts.
Wow.
On any given day, there's more students learning on Code.org than there are people staying at Airbnbs. And that's really because of these teachers who've decided to put this in their classroom.
That's incredible, man. You know, some people ask the question, does my kid really need to learn to code? Like, is this something that every kid in the world needs to do? How would you answer that question?
That's a great question. I get asked all the time. I don't believe every kid needs to learn to code. I believe every school needs to teach computer science. You wouldn't send your kid to a school that doesn't teach biology. And then if you think about biology, you know, the biology class in high school is optional. So not every kid learns biology, but the elementary school, every kid learns that plants are grown from seeds and they make flowers and bees make honey from those flowers. And that's not biology class, they're just learning how the world works. That level of stuff, every elementary school student should get some basic knowledge of, like, how does the internet work? How do I stay safe on the internet? What is an algorithm? You don't necessarily need to know how to invent an amazing algorithm, but just learning the basics to be a digital citizen is essential for every kid in the 21st century.
Yeah, awesome. So last question. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
It's incredible. So last question here. We just announced Pluralsight 1 and our commitment to pledge 1%. And, you know, really want to make a difference here around this. We're like, you know, hitting the problem from different angles. And I would just love to hear your thoughts, like, in response to this announcement around what you see. Like, what advice would you give us? And how do you see our organizations being able to work together in the future?
I would say just give us all the money and we'll, I'm just kidding.
Well, you are making the biggest difference today.
Thank you. You know, we try very hard to have an impact, but I think it's so fantastic for for-profit companies to have a conscience and to have a deliberate goal around making a social impact. And given your work in education especially, it makes the most sense. And I think there's a great connection between the work we're doing at K through 12, especially with the least privileged students, to help them connect after K through 12 to what's possible in the world of technology. You know, we stop where 12th grade ends. Beyond that, Code.org doesn't really spend a lot of time. Our courses are being used by a bunch of older people, but not nearly the same way. So I think there's a lot of ways the work we do can fit together. And finding those amazing nonprofits to support is great for you to be doing.
Awesome.
I'm so proud of it.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Hadi Partovi, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.